Thanks for joining us for another For Investors by Investors Long Beach podcast. As always, we're proud to be your all-education real estate resource without any kind of sales pitch. If you'd like to attend one of our meetings in person, we meet on the last Thursday of the month at the Grand in Long Beach, California. You can RSVP on forinvestorsbyinvestors.com/Long Beach. To find more investment resources such as blogs and podcasts and content from other FIBI groups, you can go to forinvestorsbyinvestors.com and search our entire library. Now, on to the podcast.
Thank you guys very much for joining us. We appreciate it. For those of you guys who don't know, and for those of you guys who do know, I'm very sorry for this brilliant time. But for those of you who do not know, For Investors by Investors which is FIBI for short, is basically a real estate investment club that does not have a sales pitch. We don't pitch boot camps, book and tape sets, or the next upsell of the month and things like that. We are here to teach, add value as much as we can, and develop as many relationships as we can. Because with FIBI, and we have a couple chapters throughout Southern California, we really believe in the power of our network. I wouldn't be where I am today without everybody here or different people that come and I meet over and over and over again. And so we do this. We don't make any money. We're a nonprofit organization, and we just teach, and we do this because we get tons of business out of it. We find new ways of helping each other, and then at the same time find new ways of making money too, which is pretty interesting. And that's what's really cool about real estate is everybody's doing something different or a different niche or something like that. And so when it comes down to investing, we all have resources that other people do not have, whether it's time, money, properties, strategies, knowledge. There's a ton of different ways you can contribute. So if you're a new investor, who here would consider themselves a newer investor? Okay. Who's done 5 deals, over 5 deals? Okay. 10? 100? Awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. I just wanted to give an understanding for who's here so I know who I'm talking with. And basically, if you're a newer investor, realize if you don't feel like you have resources to bring to the table or not enough, realize you probably do. You just have to look for the things that other people need. You have to find ways of helping other people. If you can do that, and whether it's a relationship or a strategy or a technology that you know about or different strategies, you can make money in real estate. You really can. So that being said, I'm going to do something we haven't done in a while, which is we're going to go around the room really quick, and I'm going to give everybody 10 seconds to say who they are, what they do, and why they're here, what they're looking for. And the reason why I'm doing this is because everybody here has something they're looking for, or what they're trying to accomplish, and I want everybody to find the other people here, take note of the other people that you want to meet afterwards and you want to come up and talk with them. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to have this very, very quick. I'm going to pass the mic around and then let you guys go ahead and do that. And please, if you have an event or something like that or someone else you want to talk about or tell people about, please feel free to do so as well.
Hi, my name is Albert Lopez. I'm a real estate investor. I like buying people's beneficial interests. So I buy dead people's houses or any very complex title issues. The reason I came here is to listen to Little Tan speak.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, sir. Albert.
Good evening. My name is Ryder Byrne. I'm from Civic Financial. We're a private money lender financing non-owner-occupied investment properties. I'm looking to connect with any real estate investors who may need some financing on the next project.
My name is Miguel Aguilar, and I'm a real estate investor. I've done a few flips and I have a few rentals, and I'm just here to run.
Dion, here to learn from the best, and done a few flips and few notes, and here to learn.
Hi, my name is Tushar. I'm a CPA. I'm here to learn more about property deals.
Sorry, you're a CPA, man.
Hey, that's a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
You would know.
Hello, Marissa. I'm looking for investment opportunities.
You better be more specific, Marissa.
Okay, I started about 6 months ago trying to figure out what I wanted to do, flipping or money lending, reverse syndications, sort of passive income is what I'm looking for.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm a real estate investor and financial consulting. I just started this notes with Justin, but also you're going to make a few comments on that one item. And for right now, as I talk with my past clients, some of them have a little bit of money, they know me, they trust me. I want to find out how legally I can take their money.
I think he said it correctly.
Hello, my name is Enrique, like Enrique Iglesias, and I am a social media marketer. My niche is more into like real estate, helping them get more clients, helping realtors get more clients. And I mean, I have to focus on the language that they're talking. Sometimes they're talking about languages that like foreign language. I don't even know what they're talking about. So I just have to get to know the language, the metaphors, the jokes, and stuff like that.
Right. I'm an investor-friendly real estate agent, and I'm here to learn more about promissory note investing.
My name is Fred Sanchez. I'm a real estate investor. Been doing it for over a decade. I do flips, buy and hold, 1-4 units, and also some multifamily and kind of sleep a little bit. We're in Long Beach and LA and stuff, and we're looking to 1031 some of our properties into larger properties, maybe into a syndication deal to start. So we got some equity in some of these properties. We want to just find something to do with them and scale up.
Hi, I'm Sasha Kuczynski. I'm here with my siblings. We are interested in promissory note investing. Yeah, we would like a lot. And we're looking for to join a group that knows what they're doing more than we do. So we have some capital. We have money.
Be careful how you say that.
Capital's a good way. My name is Zach Kuczynski. I'm a realtor by trade in Long Beach, mainly residential, Long Beach and surrounding areas. Here with my sisters and I, though, to learn about promissory notes and the different ways in which we can invest possibly in that arena.
My name is Bill Tan. I'm a real estate investor, note investor, exchanger. I run a club up near Pasadena called LA RIA. And
you have a free pass, right?
I have a free pass if they for the first meeting.
Cool.
If they take my business card, that business card. And I'm a transaction area, put together deals. As a matter of fact, I helped someone in the room recently. Right. So I put together deals that other people can't figure out. Somebody wants to put together a deal, notes, real estate, doesn't matter. I figured out how to do it. Quickly.
Thanks for the help. You made me some money.
Gerald Lemoyne. I'm here tonight because Matt asked me to come speak. But seriously, I come here.
I'm here to learn.
There you go. And I'm here to learn as well. I always pick up things from the crowd. And but I come to Matt's meeting on a regular basis, and I enjoy it. There's some great speakers here and good topics, and it's I've been doing this full time since 2005, and. It is it's a group activity. You can't do it by yourself. It's good to partner up with people, and I've learned so much. I've known Bill for 10 years also, and learned so much from him.
More than that, you took my class longer than that.
Yeah, it's 10, 12 years, whatever, some length of time. So anyhow, good to be here. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Taylor. I'm a new real estate investor. I'm researching out-of-state buy and hold, potentially other options, and note investing sounds interesting too, so I'm here to learn.
My name is Tegan, and I'm a real estate investor. I currently own a few properties, and my business partner and I are going to get into syndication. So he owns a property management company, a construction company, and a maintenance company here in California, and it just kind of would be a natural, I think, transition to then move into syndication, where we can utilize the companies that he owns and operates to help facilitate good deals with syndication.
My
My name is Robin Reed, and I have a property management company here in Long Beach, and I am interested in learning more about investing in notes. It's something I have not done, and I have a good friend who's made a lot of money at it, so I'm really interested.
My name is Mike Navarro, and my background is mortgage financing for the last 15 years. So I've been the person doing all the pre-approval process and putting together loans to close for residential homes. And I always saw the last 15 years a lot of people, clients of mine who become wealthy through real estate, and I always ask them, what do you do, what do you do? And so the last few years I've been going to real estate events like once a month, just trying to learn more, whether it's owning, want to own a mobile home park or try to buy flip or do flips. But the capital was one thing I just didn't realize, like, how am I going to be able to get that? And so my girlfriend and I got introduced to notes a couple years ago, and I kept hearing about it, but I didn't really understand it. So got introduced to it, and just found a way for the average person with average means to be able to get involved in residential notes for a considerable amount of money, or save a lot of money and be able to turn into something big. And so she's aligned herself with Jasmine and found a great way to possibly do real well.
I feel like I don't need to introduce myself.
Sure you do.
My name is Natasha. I buy non-performing bank notes. I'm actually JV partnered with several people in this room, so that's cool. But I'm always looking for additional JV partners to bring the capital, and I do the work. And I'm also in line with the most amazing person ever, Jasmine, which I'd like to hear about.
Hi, everybody. My name is Clarissa Manfred. I am a recovering real estate investor, I guess. I've done a little bit of everything. And at this time, I really just want to focus on spending more time with my kids while they're still young. So I've been going passive over the last 3-4 years. I'm currently lending to flippers, and I don't want to do it myself, but I trust these people. But I really want to get into longer investments that are passive. So I'm here to learn more about how to do that, so I can spend more time doing the things I want to do. And fun fact, it's my birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Clarissa. Happy birthday to you.
Never forget who I am.
And we are so honored that you
No one understands why I'm here tonight. What are you doing on your birthday? I'm going to a real estate meeting. So I'm looking forward to meeting you guys. And that's it.
And we are honored.
Hi everyone, my name is Aldrich. I help people make a good return on their money without the headaches, and I create those. So if you want to know more about
Howdy, howdy.
I usually have mine.
My name is Jasmine, affectionately known as the Note Mama, and I'm here to show support. I love this business, and one of my biggest pride is to build these, like these guys who are doing note piece, and here to show support. Some of my favorite note guys, I know Gerald and Bill, know them for a while, and get to know Matt and show some support because I really think I've seen how this has changed people's lives, and for a layman, someone who didn't come from anything. So I'll tell you, I can help you get that done. That's it. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Andrew. I invest in distressed commercial notes. I'm here really to network with some passive investors and see how we can work together on some deals.
Hello, my name is Eric. I'm interested in passive income, and I've been trying to build my portfolio very slowly for a while now, so I'm here to learn to try to speed that up.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Greg, and I'm a passive syndicated real estate investor. I look for cash flow. And I'm here tonight for two reasons. One is I came to my first meeting with Matt about a year and a half ago, so I'm a big fan. These are great meetings. We meet a lot of great people. But the second reason is I've done enough invested in notes to know that I don't know enough, and so I want to learn more, make sure I'm optimizing my return and minimizing my risk at the same time.
Hello everyone, my name is Ken Bolts. I'm an accountant. You learn about investing in notes.
Hello everyone, my name is Matt. I'm a real estate investor focusing on cash flow and digital income for myself and other investors that I help.
here tonight to network and learn more about notes.
For you accountants in the room, I'm a CPA as well, so go buy the 10 VII financial calculator first. It's the number one thing you guys got to do, and you guys will appreciate that, trust me. So, my name is Matthew Owens. I'm a California licensed CPA and a full-time investor. I've been investing for over 10 years. We've flipped over 600 houses. We're flipping about 10 a month right now. I just did the math today, and we have about 32 houses under contract to sell right now. And we invest in value-add multifamilies. I invest in non-performing and performing notes, being I lend money. I also invest in syndication, raise capital for syndication and things like that. And then I help investors with their tax and legal structure and components of their investing business. I don't charge for that service. I just kind of help them with that piece of it and find ways of helping each other through that avenue. So if you guys need help with that, then hit me up and we'll talk about it. That being said, I got about 2 minutes for our sponsors, just because we don't, like I said, we don't make any money at these clubs. These sponsors help us to keep this cost cheap and free. Let's see here. So first of all, you guys have seen the FIBI events. So first things first is we have an annual membership, $299 for a season, all chapter season pass through all of our chapters, or $199 for one pass if you wanted to come all year. And so you guys can do the math on the discount associated with that.
How many FIBIs are there?
Say it again?
How many FIBIs are there?
I believe there's about 6 right now, so you get to go to all of those. And then we have a couple of events coming up in FIBI Manhattan Beach coming up on October 11th. We're doing it we do an annual meeting on macro and microeconomics. We have different panelists come in and talk about that, which it's basically what's happening right now, and we do an annual update on the economic side. We have a brunch and learn coming up on how to become a private lender on October 21st. That's a Saturday. October 26th, tax and legal strategies for real estate investors, and November 8th, flipping and holding multifamily properties, and that is going to be in South Bay. So those events should be good, quality educational things for you guys to go to if you want to. Here's our primary sponsor slide. Trillion Capital is a hard money lender that sponsors the group, has decent rates on their hard money loans. LQ Financial is my wife's bookkeeping company, and she's the best bookkeeper on the planet. So, and if you eat all her cookies in the back, she'll kill you. So you're not allowed to eat all of them. You have to leave a couple for her. Okay. Hart King is a law firm that I utilize all the time for different contracts and different strategies. I use a number of different attorneys for different strategies that I implement. Syndication attorneys, eviction attorneys. These guys help me with a lot of my contracts and general legal work. In-a-day development are the guys that actually developed the 10 VII financial calculator. So they actually are really valuable. It's like $6 for the financial calculator. It's one of the best things. I use it every day. New Western Acquisition is a wholesaler company that wholesales properties in Southern California. And UDirect IRA Services is a self-directed retirement account company that you can self-direct your own retirement into notes and different strategies and control your own retirement, which in my opinion is one of the best strategies you could use. You start to understand that. And one of the things that 90% of people outside of the real estate realm don't seem to get or understand is that you can invest inside your retirement accounts and do a ton of different investments inside of those. So that being said, I'm going to shut down the presentation here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So first things first, who here has invested in promissory notes before? So I know that the key players. Okay, so for those of you guys who haven't, I think it's really, really important to understand some of the different ways to protect yourself and the different strategies and the different types of notes that you can purchase. And so to start off, Bill, Gerald, thank you guys very much for coming. I love having you guys here because you're a wealth of knowledge to help with this. And from a note perspective, can you guys explain, give a general overview of what a note is in the first place and how you secure it and what the general paperwork is involved in a note?
Do you want to do it?
I can do that. I'll give you something else. So a note, if you go out and buy a house, you're going to... If I should do that. So just think of a note. When you go out and you buy a house, and you're going to pay $600,000 for a house around here, and you get a first mortgage for say $500,000. and maybe you get a second mortgage for, $80,000 or $75,000. That's basically, you're signing a promissory note when you do that. And it's secured by a deed of trust. So there's each note, like if you have a first and a second, each one is going to be secured by a deed of trust, and which is recorded at the county. And when these notes are transferred, it may go from say Wells Fargo over to a trust like U.S. Bank Trust or something like that. And you may get a letter in the mail that says instead of mailing your payments to Wells Fargo, mail it to Aquin Servicing, something like that. Has anyone ever happened to you guys where you get a notification saying mail your payments to this place instead of this place? So notes are transferred with an assignment of deed of trust in California. So there's an assignment that gets executed, and that's what transfers a note. What happens is a lot of times the banks will, if a note becomes non-performing, the bank, instead of foreclosing on the homeowner, they can just sell that note to someone like me or Bill or any of these other people in the room at a discount because they're not really equipped to handle tens of thousands of foreclosures. So that note gets sold at a discount. We buy it. We go to the homeowner and we attempt to work out a payment plan with that homeowner. So we may create a modification agreement. So the payment might have been $1,400 a month, and we can drop it down to say $800 a month, make it more affordable, and maybe shorten up the term on that loan. But in a nutshell, that's how they get transferred. There's also another document called an allonge that gets executed as well. That is like a bill of sale or endorsement on the note. So you have an assignment and an allonge that's used to transfer the note. Did I leave anything out?
I got a question. He covered an awful lot, didn't he? Is anybody a little confused of what a note is? Seriously, raise your hand. Now's the time. Okay.
Simplified.
A real estate note is an IOU. It says, I owe you money. Now, the terms of what you're going to pay back is in the note itself. I'm going to pay you back so much a month, so much interest rate over so long. Like 30 years, 4% interest, $3,500 a month till paid. Now, they're not sure you're actually going to make every single payment. So in order to protect themselves, the lender's going to say, I need some security. So if you're buying a real estate, you're buying a single-family residence, they say, okay, we'll provide you the money to buy the residence, but we want to secure our note against that residence in case you don't pay us. And we want to make sure that we get paid, so we want you to have skin in the game. What's that called?
Equity.
A down payment. And that's their protective equity. That is the most important thing when you're lending money or buying a note, is protective equity. How much you lend against the value of the property. And in conventional loans, what is the down payment? 20%. That's because conventional lenders over the years have learned that if they make an 80% loan, if the people stop making payments, if they go through the whole process of foreclosure and sell the property, that they need 20% cushion in order to get all their money back. So that would be, on a $100,000 property, be the $80,000 that was owed, plus any money that defaulted payments they did not make, any costs of going through the foreclosure, costs of evicting them from the property, all those get added into it. Now, in the state of California, as he said, we use a deed of trust, also known as a trust deed. In other states, they use different things. And here in California, 99% of the properties are secured by a deed of trust. Some properties are secured by contracts. In other states, they're called contract for deeds or land contract. That's very prevalent through the Midwest. In the rest of the country, they use a mortgage. Now, mortgage is the generic name for the IOU on a house loan. Everybody calls it a mortgage. However, in the East Coast, they actually have a document, their security document. It's not a deed of trust, it's a mortgage. So your house is secured by a mortgage. The difference between a deed of trust, a land contract, and a mortgage is that the land contract and a mortgage, you have to go to court in order to foreclose. So you have to go through the court system. And that can be a very, very long time.
Did that help? I think that's actually really interesting. So you're basically saying, just to recap, you have a promissory note that governs the actual contract, that governs the payback period, all of that stuff, right? That's the actual promissory note. And the deed of trust that goes with it is what secures your money by that property. Now, there's some other intricacies that everybody should understand, which is, other ways to protect yourself. Like if you're dealing with a rental property, you may want to do what's called an assignment of rents and leases and secure that by the property. You also want to get put as the lost payee on the insurance policy as well, if you're, a mortgage holder or something along those lines. Or sometimes you have to get your own insurance to protect the property in certain cases as well if the homeowner does not have proper insurance. So whoever you're lending to, you want to make sure that insurance is current.
And title insurance.
Yeah, and title insurance. So lender's title insurance as well as, the homeowner gets title insurance and you want lender's title insurance so you can have insured clean title so you don't have problems later on and not being able to foreclose, or there's a lien ahead of you that you didn't realize, and those types of things to protect yourself. So what other things can you guys think of when you are initially evaluating a note for just the protection piece, not necessarily the return on investment piece, but the protection piece? What is the different things that you're reviewing to determine if it's a decent enough note to buy? Say if it's a non-performing, because there's different types of notes, right? You can have non-performing, performing notes. You can have notes secured against different asset classes and things like that as well. So what is your thoughts when you're looking at, call it a non-performing note? What are some of the things that you look at when you're trying to determine if this is something that you're going to get your money back from? How do you protect yourself?
Well, let me start.
Before he answers that, that deed of trust, so if you have a note with a deed of trust, and so you have to foreclose, is that easier than the mortgage? You just said the mortgage and the land contract, you go to court.
Yes.
It's a lot easier.
It's a lot easier.
And here in California, it's 3 months, 3 weeks process. And you use a neutral third party, so you don't use the courts. We'd have to get a little bit further into it because there's 3 parties to a deed of trust: borrower, lender, and a trustee. The trustee is the disassociated third person that says, "Okay, hey, when the lender says the borrower's not paying me, they have to go to the trustee. The trustee goes, hey, borrower, if you don't keep making payments, we're going to foreclose." It's not the lender that does it, it's the trustee. And that's a much faster process.
And keep in mind, guys, that's a great question. If you guys have these types of questions, keep them coming. You guys feel free to ask these types of questions as we go through. This is supposed to be more of a Q&A type thing. I wrote questions down and come up with questions in case you guys didn't have anything. Okay, so the whole point here is for you guys to ask those types of questions.
One thing, Carlos, when you describe what you do, tell people that you buy interests in trusts. When you say beneficial interest, most people don't understand that. So you're looking for properties where people passed away where there's the ownership's in a trust, because you buy the beneficial interest of a trust.
Not necessarily.
Well, that's Benny's beneficial interest.
Well, and also, if they stand to inherit, there's no will, whatever. But I like the ones where there is no.
Okay, then I stand corrected. Most people don't understand when you say beneficial interest.
Well, that's why I say I like dead people's houses.
They don't put much of an argument, do they? Okay, what question?
So I was saying.
Thank you for the feedback.
So I was saying basically when you're looking at a non-performing note to purchase, or any note to purchase, what due diligence?
Let me answer this first, and this is a general answer. First off, before you ever consider notes, understand real estate. Okay? The reason being, what is the ultimate payer on any note?
Get in the house.
The real estate. So you have to understand the value of the real estate before you should get into notes, because the ultimate payer is the real estate. You need to understand value of the real estate. You understand value of the real estate before you then evaluate the quality of the note. So, and protective equity, I said it before. What's protective equity? Does anybody remember?
Down payment.
The amount of value of the property above what is owed. Loans to value. Okay, the stuff above the loans. So that's basic. So if I was looking at a performing note, a non-performing note, I always look to see if there's any protective equity. If there's not, can I create protective equity by buying that second or first at a discount? So you can create protective equity. And what's great about buying a second and paying much less than that, they still owe you the whole face value. And you paid much less.
What is the good protective equity rate percentage?
What do conventional banks use? What do conventional banks use? 20%. Hard money lenders, what do hard money lenders do? Do they do 80% loans? No.
70, 75.
They do 50, 60, 70%. Because they're only looking for the property to pay them back. They're not looking at the borrower whatsoever.
And so it's basically what is considered protective equity is, or what level of it is going to be based on how much you can sell that property for and get all your money back. Plus you have to consider your time to actually go do that as well.
The costs,
foreclose, go rehab a property, do all of that work. You're looking at legal costs and all those types of things. You want to make sure those are built into your projection as well when you're looking at how to protect yourself on them.
Are you in an increasing market, flat market, or declining market? You need to know that too.
So Bill and I do a little bit different note business. I specialize in non-performing loans, and we buy both first and seconds. And we evaluate first in a different way than we would the seconds. We recently bought a couple of loans. One was in Massachusetts, first mortgages. One was in Sacramento. And the property was worth, say, in the high 300s, 380, 390. The debt that we bought was also in the high 300s, 390. And we actually paid close to $200,000 for each of those notes. And so we're at almost 50% loan to value, or maybe 55%. And so that's what we looked at, the value of the property. One thing that I learned early on, maybe Bill taught it to me, was never buy a note on a property that you wouldn't mind owning the property later on. So I'm not going to go out and buy a note on a car wash or something, or a funeral home or a church, or, I buy notes on residential properties to where I have an exit strategy later on. I could always keep it as a rental if necessary. If I can't sell it, and there's enough cash flow coming off of it, I can always hang on to it as a rental. We look at bankruptcy, especially in the seconds. We buy a lot of seconds, and when we check seconds, when we buy a pool of seconds, we want to look at the credit reports and make sure that the first mortgage, know what the balance is there any equity in the property, and is it performing, is it current? And so that helps us determine the equity in the property. And then on seconds, we also look at the bankruptcy, which we can do through pacer.gov. It's public record. Anyone can look up a bankruptcy on any property in the country, or any homeowner, any borrower. And there's a thing that goes on with second mortgages called lien stripping, where if there's no equity in the property, the homeowner can go and file Chapter 13 bankruptcy and strip the lien. And that's one of the biggest risks that we have buying second mortgages. If that took place, or if the senior mortgage holder foreclosed on the property and wiped out the junior lien. So those are some of the things we look at when we're buying second mortgages. We also buy performing loans. We make sure that there's enough equity and that the yield is high enough. You could buy a loan at a 12% yield, but it's 110% loan to value, and so we don't want that. We would drop the offer price low enough to where the yield may be higher, but we also have protective equity. The loan to value is lower. So that's
question here.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand. So, are you saying that when you buy a first, you're more concerned with the asset, and then when you buy a second, you're more concerned with the individual? Is that what I'm hearing right now?
That's right, and
not me. I'm always looking. I'm always looking at the property.
Right.
We agree to disagree. I always look at the asset.
Yeah, we have different. I mean, right now we hold about 300 loans. And just this week, we're getting ready to close on 2 purchases that are a total of about 30 loans for about $400,000. These are all junior liens. Some have a lot of equity, some have no equity. I mean, I'm buying some loans right now that are 150% loan to value, but I'm paying like 8 cents on a dollar for them. So I'm paying.
So your true cost, you have actual built-in equity in those values there?
Not really. I'm kind of rolling the dice. When I buy junior liens, I'm looking at it like a mutual fund, where you buy a basket of stocks. I'm basically buying a basket of loans. Some of those are going to be home runs, and some of them are going to crap out. We're going to lose money on some of those loans. But over our 10 years of doing this, we know that a certain number of those loans are going to become performing, that we're going to get paid off either through a short sale or the homeowner is going to bring the loan current. So it's diversification in what I do is very important.
I think 100% agree with that strategy. If you know your stuff and know what you're doing and know the percentages as well as you know them, I think a lot of the people in this room would have a hard time doing seconds like that because one, you got to buy pools to make it make sense. You don't buy 1 second mortgage that's underwater. Even if you're buying it 8 cents on the dollar, you might hit a home run and get a good deal, but the chances of one crapping out, what is it, like 33% across the board, 33% payoff, 30% or 33% are junk, and then 33%, they get reperforming or something along those lines, right? So it's all a numbers game. And one of the things that I think was important when he's talking about current equity in a property, you want to be able to understand that when you're buying this note, it's not the after repaired value of that property up here, that you're looking at. You're looking at the property in its current condition because say you have a house that, you have a loan of $200,000, you're buying, you say you're into it for $200 and the property's worth $300, right? You may think you have a decent amount of equity there. But at the same time, what if it takes $50,000 in that property to get that $400,000 or that $300,000 sale? In that case, you're really at, a $250,000, net equity in current condition. So definitely trying to understand and assess what that rehab may be based on the square footage and having somebody do a drive-by or take a look at the exterior may be important to consider. So, yeah.
If someone has some capital and they're looking to find someone to partner with who knows more than they do, what are some of the questions they should be asking to vet the person? How do you know that you're investing with the right people?
Good question.
I'll do that too.
Sorry, go ahead.
I could answer, but he does it more than I.
Well, I'll answer her question, but I want to mention one thing. In the note business, we have what's called emotional equity.
Thank you.
There's a someone who their kids are going to school down the street. They've lived in this house 10 years. They want to hang on to their property. I bought a loan on a property, and I think it was Stockton or Modesto, somewhere up in the Central Valley, and it was literally she owed $300,000 on a house worth $200,000. We bought a second mortgage. It was like a $50,000 second. When we sent out the RSVP letter, it's the legal notices that are required when the loan transfers. She called us up and said, Gerald, I know I owe this money. I want to pay it. What kind of a break can you give me? Can you give me a discount? And can I pay you $400 a month? And we had bought the loan for like $5,000. Because it was one of those 8 cents on the dollar loans. Yeah. And she said, my kids go to school down the street. We've lived in this house 10 years. We don't want to move. We want to stay in this house. And what can we work out? And so that's the emotional side of the business, emotional equity. Going back to your question, I think track record. We work with a dozen or so investors. We've raised probably 6 or 7 million over the last, mostly over the last 6 or 7 years. And most of our investors continue to sort of basically roll their money back over. When I get ready to write them a check and say, okay, this paid off, I need to pay you off, they say, well, Gerald, what else can we put it into? If you got anything else that we can go into. And so I said, well, yeah, let's find something. We'll get your money working. But I think you can ask for references. Ask people in this room that know me. Talk to Bill when I'm not next to him. And, talk to Matt, talk to, people that I know. Andrew comes to my meetings over there. Jasmine, knows me to some extent, and get some references and talk to people, and they'll vouch for me or they won't vouch for me, one or the other, and I'm not quite sure what else. Bill can probably shed some light on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Matt too.
You must know exactly. It's a partnership. You must know exactly what is going to be provided by each person, what's expected, so that there's no questions. The more detailed the partnership agreement is, I will do this or I will do that. Now, having said all that, when I did partnerships, people brought the money to me, just gave it to me, and I took care of everything because they just want to be completely passive. However, check the people out. There are many ways to check people out. There are sites that can do a search on that person and tell you their background and if they've had any problems, so forth. You can ask people who've used their services before. A whole list of questions. It's such an open-ended question. It's very difficult. Okay. However, if there's certain ways to invest. One is to abdicate. I talked about this earlier. Abdicate your money, which they're going to do everything. Don't borrow money to invest, and don't ever accept money that people borrow unless you know what you're doing. And understand that if you turn it over to them, don't bug them every month. And get checks and balances every month, a statement. Okay. I want to go back to a little bit. He does a lot of note business, right? And when Jasmine asked me that question, it's more important to me the asset, because I don't do a lot of notes. And because I did what he did before, that's work. I don't like doing that much work. So I want to make sure that I either get paid, either by the borrower or by the property. So I make sure I only do a few notes at a time. So you have to determine what your goal is. Are you going to be a churner and burner? Or are you going to be a small-time passive investor? You have to make the determination.
And I think that's key too. Everybody's risk tolerance level is a little bit different from each other. So I think it's important to understand, do you want to be active? Do you want to be passive? And, like you said, if you have to foreclose on the note or you can own the note, you have to be happy with either one. So if you're going to own the property. And, going back to your question with regard to, checking people out before you invest with them. Background and criminal check every time.
That's what I couldn't remember.
Yeah, there's a company called TLO that you can sign up with, and they make sure you have a locked cabinet for your files for some stupid reason because they don't realize they have online storage now. But so they take a picture of your locked storage cabinet and stuff like that, and you can sign up for them. And you want to do it specifically for business purposes. You can also do skip tracing on that software and things like that, which is really interesting. But there's, in addition to that, when you're asking these, the references, the different people always require references for different people that have done business with it. When you're asking those references, you're going to ask things like, how is their communication? How do they get back to you right away? Have you gotten your accounting statements and your payments on time every month? What was the deal that you got with them and the loan to value and things like that? Now I tell my references, don't tell them because I want to negotiate interest rates. But at the same time, these are the types of things, I give a list of like 15 references every time, and if they want more, I go give it to them because that's the right thing. And I can tell you right now that 90% of people don't do it. They do not do it. I was impressed by a guy the other day that's going, you know what, I don't want to use your attorney for the closing. I want to get my attorney involved so I can take a look at it as well. I was impressed that he actually called every one of my references, and I should not be impressed by that, So those types of things you can do when you're looking at this. And the most important thing you can do is understand the property and the paperwork involved. That's, no matter what happens, You could be doing business with a dirtbag, and he could try to steal from you, but if you know your paperwork and know what you have and know that it's recorded correctly, you have adequate protection, even if it's a headache to deal with afterwards. But the number one thing you're looking for is people's character. You want to look at that character first, because I know everybody says this all the time. If you're doing a bad deal with a good operator, it still could turn out good. If you're dealing with a good deal with a bad operator or someone that is shady, it could very well turn out bad, and that's usually the case. It's all based on the person that's the operator that's doing the work and helping you with that transaction. So
a great return on investment is only great if you get paid.
Yes, exactly. So
how many are here just beginning? Okay, here's a couple books. Invest in Debt by Jimmy Napier. I always told all my investors before they worked with me, I wanted them to know what I'm doing, so I gave them homework. If they didn't do the homework, then I didn't work with them. Invest in Debt by Jimmy Napier. Smart Trusted Investing in California by George Coates. That one's out of print, but you can find it. Last I heard it was $10. At one point it went up to $500. It's a good book.
Could you say the name of the second one again?
Smart Trusted Investing in California. George Coates. And take basic real estate knowledge. Enrique. Take basic real estate knowledge. There's plenty of stuff in the library. Lots of stuff. Very little on notes, which is why I got into note business to begin with, because nobody else was doing it. You have to learn the basics before you get involved. Otherwise, you'll have no idea what's going on. You'll get frustrated even if they give you reports. Since he's busy, go ahead.
I was wondering if you could speak a little towards the differences in risk-reward spread between hard money lending versus promissory note investing.
There's almost none.
Really?
Really. I invested in notes all through the 80s and 90s, and when they dried up, I started doing hard money lending because they were very similar returns. And you needed to know the same information.
can you talk about a little bit about the pros and cons of investing in like non-performing paper, performing paper, and hard money lending or private lending like that, and what the kind of the differences are between those, and as far as workload goes and possible risk?
Okay, I have to give that to him because workload. When you spoke workload, I don't know that word.
So returns between the different types of what sort of returns would be expected?
Well, it can be negotiated, but hard money goes anywhere from 6 to 15. Where's Ryder? He just left?
He left.
Hey, a hard money lender, and I gave him the business, and he just went out. Who else is hard money lending? So what are they going right now?
Interest rates.
Yeah, interest rates, hard money.
It depends on.
It's usually they're in between 6 and 15. When I get hard money, I want it to be rather called private money than hard money because I want the lower interest rates. So he's smiling because of that.
Hard money makes it hard to make a profit. So
yes.
Here's the thing. So out here in California right now, I'm seeing hard money rates at 8.5% to 9%, possibly up to 10 or 11, depending on or 12, depending on who you're at. But I'm seeing the competitive rates at 8.5 and 9, and plus 2 points is what I'm seeing at a minimum on those 8.5. Usually, if you're at like a 12% rate, you might be able to get like a point or something like that involved. But out of state, in certain Midwest areas, because the loan size is smaller, you can get a little bit better rates than that. But it depends also who you're dealing with. Like if I'm going to go through and raise capital, and I've been doing this for 10 plus years and have a lot of capital sources, I'm going to pay 8. I don't need the money if it's 10, 12%. I just don't need it because I have enough relationships. But the newer people that might be more risky when you're dealing with, note investing that might not have as much experience, and so it's a little bit more risky from that regard. You're dealing with, you can charge a little bit higher rates, and you should because your risk is different, So it all depends. It also depends on the loan to value. If you have something that's 75% loan to value versus 50% loan to value, that might constitute a completely different rate, and it also may be dependent on if you're performing or not performing
performing at that time or something like that. Like non-performing paper, like we've invested in before and we've invested in, you can make really high returns, but you can imagine the amount of work that goes into that, of course, that Gerald does as well, and how much you're getting paid for your labor as well. So you have to kind of look at it too, saying, is there a passive investment return that I'm comfortable with? And then is there an active investment return that I'm comfortable with? Because if you're doing the work, you should get paid more for those types of things.
And let me add, where's the money coming from? Is it somebody who has a pension or self-directed IRA fund, or it's just sitting there and they're getting absolutely no return on their money? Or if it's in a bank account and they're getting less than 1%, if you can offer them a safe, good return, they'd probably be willing to accept 4 to 6%.
Gerald, how many paper cuts did you get? Because it sounds like you do so much work, but you don't look like someone does a lot of work.
I don't get paper cuts anymore. There's this thing called direct deposit.
I'm talking to this guy. You give him a hard time. I don't think you work that hard.
I was just in his office. He was working.
Gerald, how many paper cuts? Because some of us have jobs, and some of us may go out and actually bust concrete. So hearing what you do may be a breath of fresh air.
Bless you. Anybody goes out and busts concrete?
Well, we run a small office. I have 5 employees, and my wife is a CPA, so I have to give homage to the CPA people in here tonight. So I'm indirectly related, But it's a lot of work. I mean, putting this last bid together, a lot of questions, all our due diligence, going through all these loans, negotiating back and forth. We have an active note investing company. We've done probably close to 1,000 deals since 2008. So we've churned through a lot of notes. And currently we still hold over 300, and we're buying 30 this week. So we're adding 10% to our portfolio. And our rate of return, I would think, is in the high teens, 16, 18%. And I pay investors, I basically have 2 ways of investing. One is through the joint ventures, the JVs. The other way is on a fixed rate of return, where I'll give someone, the lowest money I'm getting right now is about 6.5%, and the highest is up in I hate to say it, but I am paying 12% to some people because they've been with me a long time, and they've talked me into it. They have a lot of capital. Yeah, and they're good friends of mine. I'm paying money into their IRA account. They'll do the same for me someday, and they're like, well, Gerald, you gave me 12 last time. How come I can't get 12 again? That kind of a thing. But
you got to get your negotiating down.
Well,
margins are getting thinner. I can't do anything about it.
I've ratcheted down. I have paid. I hate to say it, but I paid 18% at one time. 4 or 5 years ago when I was kind of hungry for money at that time. But where was I going?
Versus JV.
Did you make money on it?
Yeah. I mean, we're making money. I mean, one of your questions was talk about a deal that we've done recently. Yeah. I'm going to use 2 examples. One, I had a package of performing loans that I basically packaged up and used them as collateral. I got $350,000 from an investor. I'm paying them 10%. We're doing interest only for 5 years with a balloon at the end of that period that is extendable. So at the end of 5 years, if she says, hey, I don't have any place to put that money, let's go another year or 2 years, whatever. And I'm happy with that deal. I packaged up a pool of performing loans. We put them into a title holding trust. They're secured, where we're both beneficiaries of the trust. I'm the trustee. I get to sign all the documents whenever we have to do a transaction related to that trust. But that's one deal I've done recently. Another deal, real quickly, I bought a third mortgage on a property in Irvine for $35,000. Most of the loans that we buy are institutional. They were originated by a bank like Wells Fargo or Chase or B of A. This loan was a private loan where 2 people had loaned money. It's like one person loaned money to her friend, and her friend quit paying her. This loan was done in 2007. I sent out a lot of letters, like 5,000 letters last year, soliciting, hey, I'd like to buy your note. And she responded to that letter, so I bought her note for $35,000. It was a $100,000 note, and the total amount owed was $180,000. I contacted the homeowner. She paid for a while, and then she quit paying. And she also quit paying her first mortgage. And it was a big, expensive house in Irvine, $2.5 million house. So we foreclosed on the property. I paid her $25,000 cash for keys to move out. We ended up taking the house, selling it, and I got a check for $342,000 at the end of that escrow. I had $90,000 invested in it. So we made a $250,000 on that one deal this year. It was in April. But it was hairy. I mean, there's a lot of hair on that deal. You know, the first mortgage started foreclosure in January on that deal. It was $170,000 to bring the loan current. You know, the payments were $10,500 a month on that deal. So there was an IRS lien on the property. So I had to wait 120 days. There's what's called a right of redemption period. So I couldn't close escrow until that IRS lien dropped off the property. I also wiped out a judgment for $600,000 on that property. So when I foreclosed on it, I wiped out $1.2 million of debt that was junior to me. So, you know, when we foreclosed on it, we were in third position. So we had about $2 million of debt in front of us that we were basically responsible for. But there was, you know, a lot of equity in the property as well. So that was a home run. It was better than average. You know, you're not going to hit those kind of deals on a regular basis. But we've had probably 3 or 4 like that since I started doing this business.
And that's what's key is in that situation specifically, when you're buying a junior lien like that to someone else's lien, look how important it is to make sure you understand what's getting paid or not. The people that were above him in that position did not get that. They got wiped out completely because of that. So, you know, those types of situations are really important, really to know, you know, who's getting paid, who's in default, and understand all of those things. Because if you don't, you can get in a really tough situation. The same thing with when it comes to, you know, different type, like property tax liens or, you know, IRS liens and things like that. They can come before you in a situation, and sometimes you have to come and pay those off or have the capital sources to do so to protect your investment if you really needed to, or catch them up on their mortgage. $10,500 a month with an IRS lien and a $600,000. I mean, you're not worried as much about the $600,000 lien as you are the IRS lien and things like that. But those are the things he should have got paid for that with dealing with all that headache, you know? So there was a situation, it was really funny. When I first had just started meeting Gerald and talking with him at some of the FIBI clubs, I'm going to have to tell the story.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine, she came to me and she kept getting notices in the mail because she had a second mortgage of like $100,000 and she wasn't paying and stuff like that and couldn't afford it. And then she brings it to me. I'm like, why didn't she bring this to me months ago? They're starting to foreclose on you now and things like that. They're about to foreclose. And so I look at it and I look down, I'm looking at the paperwork and it's from the Lemoyne Group, Gerald Lemoyne's company. Wow. So what was crazy about that is I was able to be like, look, take your head out of the sand. Let's get this cleaned up for you. Let's go talk to Gerald about it. I called him immediately. I'm like, you're not going to believe this. And he's like, I've been trying to deal with this person for months. I've been knocking on the door, sending people by the house, and I can't get a hold of them. There's a Mercedes in the driveway, which happened to be their boyfriend's car, not the person that was doing this. And it was funny because we were able to work a deal like $35,000 for a $100,000 note. He probably got it for $10,000 or $20,000 and made some profit on it, and was able to pay off this $35,000 loan that was $100,000, and him make a profit and have a win-win with everybody. But it comes down to, you know, communicating with these people so you can see the type of stuff that he's had to go through when something comes non-performing, how much work you have to do to get that. You know, he was like, I'm ready to foreclose, I can't get a hold of them, they're just sticking their head in the sand because they're scared. They don't know what to do. And this happens probably constantly with a non-performing note business. They just will not get in touch with you because they think you're the evil bank that's going to foreclose and they just don't want to talk to you. You know, when in reality, when you're dealing with someone like Gerald that's an individual, you have the opportunity to switch things up and make a payment or come up with a monthly payment, you know? So, you know, it's really interesting the types of things that you have to do in this note business to actually get things performed.
What's the difference in the rate of return between a performing and non-performing note?
Depends on what you get it for, but...
I'll just speak real quickly, then Bill can jump in. I bought a note today, and it's in like Studio City, and it pays $1,500 a month, and I'm paying $60,000 for it. It's an $80,000 balance. I'm paying $60,000 for it. So it's a 30% return on a performing note with a consistent pay history. But that's unusual. I bought some other performing notes a few months ago, and I was getting them for 15 to 18%. But they're junior liens, they're second mortgages. And that same tape, the ones that I bought had protective equity. There was another guy that was bidding on the same loans, and he was willing to pay more money than me for some of the loans that didn't have enough equity. He was kind of disregarding equity in this equation, and I wasn't. To me, if I have to foreclose on that property, I want to make sure that I've got enough, where I can get my money out of the deal at least. So he got part of the notes. It was a pool of like maybe 40 loans. He bought 10 of them, and I bought 30 of them. And I was not willing to pay as much as him on the loans that had no equity. But he was just disregarding the equity side of the equation, which to me is kind of silly. But on performing first mortgages, you're more likely in the 8 or 10% range. 7, 8, 9, 10%. On the junior liens, you might get a little higher. You might be in the 10 to 12% range typically.
What's the difference in the workload?
Well, if it's a performing loan, there's no difference in the workload. You just, deposit the check in the bank every month.
Well, that's the difference.
What was your question? Between non-performing and performing?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's a huge difference. The non-performing loans are like buying a house that needs rehab. It's like buying an ugly house. I buy ugly notes that need a lot of work. And I might buy some notes that I sit on for 3 or 4 or 5 years and don't collect on them because I'm waiting for equity to rise. And sometimes I'll buy notes with delinquent first mortgages. Their first mortgage might not have been paid in 6 months or a year. And I'm hoping that the homeowner will get a modification on that loan and bring it current, which happens a lot. The banks they bend over backwards to help the homeowner nowadays to get a modification done and get that loan performing again. The government is kind of on their backs about, give these homeowners a break, kind of a thing. So.
And what percentage of your notes are non-performing?
We probably, we buy, probably 80% of the loans that we buy are non-performing and 20% performing. Because anybody can buy a performing note. It doesn't take much expertise. I don't mean that in a bad way. But, it's like, do you want to buy a house off the MLS that's all pretty and shiny and, doesn't need any work? Or do you want to buy a beat-up old REO or you want to go down to the trustee sale and buy a foreclosure house where you got to evict the homeowner and rehab the property. Me buying non-performing notes is more like the people that go down to the trustee sales and buy houses in foreclosure.
Because you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah. You don't know what you're getting. You're taking all the risk. That's why I can buy these notes for 15 or 20 cents on the dollar.
Where do you go to find these deals at 15 or 20 cents?
That's the hard part. People know me, and I get referrals a lot. I go to a lot of note conferences. I just spent last weekend at the Distressed Mortgage Expo over in
You're speaking over there, right?
I was on a panel, yeah. And then I go to the Paper Source in April every year, and I go to 5 or 6 conferences a year and meet people,
Is there an
network.
option system for notes, or is there like a website where you can go bid on?
Not really. FCI has a few notes on it.
Jasmine has a platform for non-performing paper.
And so does Eddie Speed.
Yeah, Eddie Speed. I don't. Most of my deals are negotiated. Like on this one that we're closing on this week, I was the only bidder on both of those deals. So we're spending $400,000, and I had no competition.
That's amazing.
As long as I hit the seller's target price, they have in their mind, hey, I want to get, $150,000 for this pool of notes.
And that's really where it comes in too, right? You're asking about the returns and things like that. It all depends on what the pain point of the seller is. Like you could have a performing note that the person it's a private lender or something, totally performing. They just need their money back immediately for another need. It's like when you're going and doing direct mail and pay-by-click marketing for homeowners, on the ground to try to buy their property, it's because they're in distress in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's performing non-performing or something like that, you're trying to pick those up. Same type of thing for note holders, the people, the owners of those notes. But then now you have institutional money as well that's coming in and doing that.
And then there's another way to do things. We like to solve problems. We're both problem solvers. And the amount of money we make is determined by the quality of the problems we solve, not the quantity. Well, he's really more in quantity now. I'm more in quality. I do smaller things. I can get a very nice return on first. He's talking about 8, I can get 15 and more. I do it a little differently. Are you aware that you do not have to buy all of a note at one time? You can buy some of the payments. It's called a partial. And that's what I specialize in. It's making a comeback, actually. I did it all through the 90s, and it was the vast majority of my business, where I buy just some of the payments, because sometimes lenders need cash. They've lent the money out, they're getting the income, but cash need. So I subtly market to lenders who've already made loans and ask them if they could use some cash right now. And then I buy the next few payments on their note, which is in first position. And I buy it in such a way that I get a 15% to 24% return on my money. And they're happy many times because if it's amortized, they're not quite so happy if it's interest only.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of cool things you can do too. I mean,
oh yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. Like I just did a private loan to a flipper and was able to do it at 12% a point. Okay, and I did it for $225,000. And I borrowed 175 of it at 8%. Was the one Bill helped me with the other day.
And that's called hypothecation.
Yeah, hypothecating the note. And so what I did is I gave them an assignment deed of trust to protect their $175,000, and I'm in it for $50,000. So guess what the return on investment is? Because I'm making 12% a point on the entire thing and paying 8 on 175. On my $50,000, I'm making a 35% return. And my loan to value was at 65%. My investor's loan to value was less than almost, I think it was like 50. I can't do the math right now. But it's really interesting just by doing that. My investor is ridiculously protected. But the key to using other people's money is to know how the paperwork works and know how to protect it. You cannot use anybody else's money without making sure that everything is clean. You know, everyone's protected involved, and they know the paperwork, and you can teach them how that paperwork works. Because if you can't teach them how the paperwork works, you're never going to convince them to loan to you in the first place, because you're not able to educate them enough on that to put them to be comfortable.
May I tell a story?
Yes.
I know he's heard the story. I still do it, though not as often. Back in the 80s, there was a company called Imperial Savings. And if you're old enough, you would have heard of them. Here in the South Bay area, primarily. And I dealt with the office that was in El Segundo. I would approach people, direct mail, like he did, and offer to buy their $100,000 note for $70,000. They had an immediate need for $70,000. So they would sell me this note that had a face amount of $100,000 that they were going to receive payments for maybe 30 years. They're scheduled to receive payments. I would then go to Imperial Savings and say, how much will you loan against this $100,000 note? Here are all the details of it. And they would lend me $80,000 on that note. And they would handle the sale and the loan, and they would then send the borrower the statements every month. So they handled the whole thing. So I paid $70, they gave me $80. What did I do with the $10,000? Difference. There was a difference, right?
You went on vacation? Yeah.
No, I put it in Hip National Bank.
There you go.
And then later on, okay, the borrower owed how much? $100,000. When that got refinanced a few years later, they paid off the $100,000. How much did Imperial Savings get? 80, because they lent 80. Where'd that extra $20,000 go? HIB National Bank. How much money came out of my pocket? Nothing. I did 46 of those deals with Imperial Savings. So I cried when they closed their doors. Now, they can still be done. Matthew just did one, right? I still do them too. It's hypothecating, it's borrowing against an existing note. And sometimes I borrow the money to buy the note. So it can be done. Another example, because I think we're running out of time. A deal that I have done several times. And this goes toward like what Carlos likes to do. I like to approach somebody who's older, who has been in a house a long time, and is getting to the point where they're not going to be able to stay in the house any longer. Are those people out there? Yes. And I would approach them, and for example, I will buy the house. This particular house had been lived in 30 years. It had not had any repairs or anything done for probably the last 20 years. And so there was a lot of deferred maintenance. And face it, the carpet was still shag carpet in there. The husband had passed away. The wife was still in there. I helped the wife find a place to go to, assisted care facility. I bought the house because I did that for her. I bought the house for $0 down. No money out of my pocket. I bought it for $360,000. I bought it for $1,000 a month for 360 payments. What was my interest rate? Zero. Okay. Now, it needed a lot of work. We're talking $50,000 to $80,000 work. Was I going to do the work? No. So I flipped the property. I sold it to a family who I knew was looking to rent in the area, but they had 3 boys and they had 4 St. Bernards. Were they going to be able to rent a house? No. And this guy made $100,000. He'd lived in the area. They moved out when they were able to move up, and then they struggled as long as they could. They eventually lost the house. They wanted to come back to the neighborhood. So I sold it to them for $400,000, which was a great deal for them. If I fixed it up and sold it, probably would have sold it for about $500,000, $520,000. Could have done that. I didn't want to do that. There's some tax implications that I wanted to avoid. So I flipped this house with almost nothing down for $400,000. And I created a second note, which included the first. So they made payments to me. I made payments to the first. Were they going to be able to buy a house on those kind of terms anywhere else? Were they? No. I knew this guy was handy with his hands because he worked in construction. The deal was for his down payment, he was going to fix up the house. Specifically things to fix up the house. Like replace the roof, everything.
Your contract?
It was in the agreement. And he had a time frame to do it, to do the things. He did all of them. So I paid out $1,000. I'm getting from him almost $3,500. So that was a nice return. Is that nice income? There was a whipped cream on top. Huh?
You created the second, right?
Right. Well, when the first runs out, my second will still be going for another 10 years. I had it structured that it was going to be 40 years at 8%. So that when the first was, if it went 30 years, first paid off, they would still owe me $180,000. And that's nice. What's even nicer is, because I put the deal together, I put them in it, I get 25% of the improved value. And now that
equity sharing loan in that case?
I took an option for 25% of the ownership after 10 years.
That's amazing.
And last time I heard the property was worth $900,000.
Wow. There's people that I know that do nothing but that strategy. They go buy properties and fixed up for discounts. They go resell them for a profit with 100% seller financing or 5-10% down, get it refinanced and out there consistently. I've done this multiple times. You have to be careful when you're dealing with homeowner loans, specifically because of Dodd-Frank SAFE Act and things like that in those markets and what laws happen in that state. But it happens a lot in the Midwest markets when you have a really high rent-to-price ratio where, we did one to a tenant that put 5% down. She's been in the property for 3 years, not missing a single payment, but wasn't going to qualify because of previous credit history or lack of income. She was self-employed in a side job to help her save on taxes, and so wasn't going to qualify, traditionally. So I was able to do, 5% down financing where her monthly payment is equal to her rent amount, including the taxes and insurance, and I impounded the accounts. And she was the most thankful person in the world because she could actually own a house. And she was living there, wasn't planning on moving, and now she has ownership. I gave her a 30-year fixed-rate loan on the thing at 9%. So, and that's where the rent-to-price ratio was. But, I did it for $85,000 with $5,000 down, and I was in it for $60,000. So look at what my return on investment is on that. It's huge comparatively. I'm in the high teens because of that. So if you look at those strategies, now I can go hypothecate the note as well and borrow 6 or 8% at $60,000 for my costs. And I'm in it for nothing.
You just dropped a bomb.
So
actually, we discussed it when you were gone.
Yeah, yes, we did. Just basically selling a piece of your note or using it as collateral for another note, basically. So. Does that make sense, guys? So, and Jasmine has a note school, so if you guys actually want to buy things from her platform, she requires you to go through the note school, which I think is probably genius because you don't want to do the wrong thing, and you want to learn the paperwork involved, and that's I learned this from I think it was Dykes Bodford and I forget the other guy's name that was there, but it wasn't Peter. I hadn't seen him at that time, but I forget the guy's name. But
where was it?
It was a weekend course. You were there, but it was years ago now, and I went for a weekend course, spent $600 for a weekend course. It changed my entire sales strategy. I was working with a lot of Japanese clients that couldn't get U.S. financing, and it taught me exactly how to do seller financing on these things, and all the paperwork involved. I brought in a consultant as well to help me with the paperwork on the first ones, and after that, it was you learn and learn and learn and keep moving forward. And so those strategies are absolutely amazing, and so many people don't even fix up the property. They're like, buy it, sell it to somebody with a markup that is going to actually do all the work and finance homeowners. And they're actually building your equity for you as they renovate that property. So you're even in it for less money. So it's really interesting, all the strategies you can deploy.
And I wanted to add on the deal that I just described to you. My second did not conform to Dodd-Frank. I didn't care. Because I had them sign this thing in their own handwriting that said, we understand that we buy, because I had an underwriter check to see if they qualified for the loan. We don't qualify for this loan, and we may lose the house. We want to go ahead with it. And they signed and dated it. That was my way around Dodd-Frank.
Okay.
In their handwriting.
Go ahead, Joe.
Bill was talking about partials, and I've been the way that I've used a lot of partials. I've probably done 50 partial agreements over the last few years, and what I've used it for is to raise capital, where I buy a performing loan. I had one recently where, not recently, a few years ago, I was getting in $500 a month, and I found a guy that wanted. He had like $25,000 to invest, and he was willing to take 8%. So I sold off the front end of a loan. I had a loan that was paying me $510 a month for 20 years, 240 months. I sold off the front end of the loan, which was 60 payments at $500 a month, for $25,000. I had bought the loan for $25,000. So basically, I had no cash in the deal at that point. So I could take that 25 and go back and buy another loan and repeat the same process over and over again. Does everyone understand what I'm saying about that?
And after 5 years, it's 100% your profit, and that person's paid off.
Exactly.
Right? So.
After 5 years, and I get the full $500 a month. So I've done that over and over again. Not so much lately, but in the beginning. The other way that I've used partials, this is something I did a few months ago or 6 months ago. I had a second mortgage on a property in like Solano Beach, Del Mar area.
That's where I live.
Yeah, nice area. Property had $500,000 equity over my second mortgage. I bought a performing second mortgage. It was $150,000 face value, interest only, with a balloon payment for 5 years later. I bought it. She wanted to sell it quick, and so I got a 25% discount on it. I bought it for like $112,500, I think, if I remember the numbers correctly. And the payment coming in is about $1,500 a month. So if you figure 12% interest rate on $150,000 a year loan balance, it's about $18,000 a year divided by 12 is $1,500. So I found someone. So my return at that discounted rate is like 16 or 17%, something like that. So I found someone who had $75,000 in their IRA account, and they were happy to get 9.5% on it. So I sold off half of the loan for $75,000, and I'm paying them $600 a month. So I had $37,500 invested in the deal. Take the $112,500 minus $75,000 leaves $37,500. That's what I had invested in the deal, and I'm getting $900 a month. And on that, $1,500 minus the $600 I'm paying out to the other person gives me $900 on a $37,000 investment. So it's about a 30% return. So I sold off half of the loan at a lower interest rate, 9.5%, and I'm getting a higher return on my share of the investment. Everyone follow that? I do it a little differently than Bill. I put it into a title holding trust, and I made the two of us beneficiaries of the trust. And I just wrote up an agreement that spells out the terms of the loan. I call it a security agreement. It just says I'm going to pay you this much money for this length of time. And at the end of this, it's an interest-only payment for 5 years. So I get $75,000 when this guy pays us off in 5 years, and the investor gets his $75,000 back also.
Yeah, how do you deal with bankruptcy? Because that's what a lot of people think when, you hear that you buy the asset and then they go bankrupt and you lose all your money,
that's not necessarily the case.
How you guys deal with that scenario when you're buying a
We go to bankruptcy court and the trustee.
Right.
And has to get the property set aside.
So it's not as horrific as you hear sometimes about the bankruptcies wiping you out.
It can be horrific because recently I got lien stripped.
That's what I'm saying.
Even though there was lots of equity in the property.
They just didn't notify you, or
there was something going on between the trustee and the bankruptcy court. Huh?
The first or second?
I was the first that got stripped.
How could that be?
Yeah, that's what I kept saying. How could that be?
I have a lot of experience with bankruptcy. I deal with it every week. I'm dealing with a bankruptcy, and some of these loans I buy that I pay, low amounts of money for, I realize that I may get stripped. One of the things that I do is I just don't foreclose on them. I just don't push too hard on the collection side of things. I'll buy these loans at a big discount, stick them in a file cabinet, and I'll pull them out and look at them once every 6 months or so and see, hey, is there any equity yet? If not, then I just put it back in the file cabinet and let it sit there. But a lot of times when I go to foreclose on a property, the homeowner will go and file bankruptcy. It's just a stalling tactic. It just slows down the process. I get my bankruptcy attorney.
Because that's the advice they get nowadays.
Yeah. I had a guy, I bought a note on a property down in San Clemente, and he filed bankruptcy 4 times. He filed Chapter 13, then his wife filed Chapter 13, then he filed Chapter 11, then his wife filed Chapter 11. So it drug out the process.
Chapter 48.
It took me like 10 months to get this guy out of the house, to finally foreclose and evict. But it just comes with the business, and that's not the typical case. Usually they file bankruptcy once, and we get it dismissed, and then we go to trustee sale and finish up the deal. Or they come to us and negotiate and say, hey, I want to keep my house. Can we work this out? But we deal with bankruptcy all the time. It just slows down the process in most cases.
It's just a cost of doing business.
Yes. It's a pain in the ass.
He said.
I think it's interesting because there's so many strategies with this note business. We just
like in real estate.
Yeah,
so many niches.
If you can bring different strategies and ideas to the table, there is no limit to how much money you can make in this. We just did one where we bought a house on a lake that there was no other comps, right, in like 2009 or 10, and there was no comps, so the bank let it go to us for cheap. We're into the property for about $95,000 for a 4,000 square foot house on a lake out of Tennessee. It was worth about $180,000 at that point. And it's interesting because we just held it for the cash flow, and then just recently we went and resold it to a homeowner that basically we have all this equity in it. And one of my investors in this case had a traditional bank loan on the property. They left that bank loan in place and did a wraparound mortgage and reseller financed it and left that financing in place to do so. Now, and we did a $170,000 sale, so she got a little bit of a discount on the property because she was already living in it, and we would have probably had to put $10,000 into the property anyways in order to actually really sell it on the open market. And so what's interesting in that situation is most people would be afraid of the due on sale clause in this situation, right? You can't sell a property without to someone else and leave the loan in place without violating the due on sale clause. Now, the due on sale clause states that the bank has the right to call that loan due. They don't have the obligation to. They have the right to if you don't notify them. But if you notify them, they're going to call it due. So what you do in that case is you better make sure if you ever do that type of thing that you have backup money to be able to pay that off if something was to happen. So in that situation, if you think about we're borrowing, the $90,000 and my other investor involved in this transaction didn't want to pay the tax on that much of a gain and to sell on open market as well. So now she's able to do an installment sale on that deal, and I'm a 50-50 partner with her on that, and do an installment sale on that deal. And I have the backup money to be able to pay it off if something was to happen. And but we're using 4.75% money on that too. I mean, the return on investment is phenomenal. We're making like 30% plus. It's crazy. So and that's just utilizing your credit or different situations to actually do this. But be careful. Make sure you understand that due on sale clause. Make sure you have the financial backing or someone that can take you out if you get into a pinch, in a situation like that. So you guys. Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to offer something.
Yes.
Question number 7 says, what is the primary due diligence you do when purchasing a note? If people will email me, bill@billtaninvestments.com, I will email you back a documentation checklist that I use. We used to be able to post files on Meetup, no longer, so it has to be this way.
Great, no problem at all. If you guys, need that as well, or forget Bill's information, hit me up, and I'll make sure you guys get it as well. So, because we're looking at a possible market change or peaking of a market in certain segments of the U.S. or a lot of the segments of the U.S., is there anything you guys are taking into consideration when you're trying to buy these notes to try to mitigate the risk of a downturn or different investing that you're doing a little bit differently now to try to realize, hey, in the next 5 years or something, we could have a major crash? Are you guys investing in different markets that aren't as volatile? Are you guys finding that you need to have a little bit more equity to protect yourself from that downside risk? Or is it more like the percentages type game that you're talking about? Is there ways that you guys have seen to protect yourself in the past during previous downturns that you may want to enact now, or for anybody in the group that might want to look at now to protect themselves better?
The way I buy notes, I'm buying with a great deal of equity in the property and someone who pays their obligations. So I'm not worried if it goes down because they'll continue making that payment.
That emotional equity.
That emotional equity.
Okay.
Is it Andrew?
Yeah.
I see an opportunity in that one of the things I'm looking at, and I attempt to do things nearby, Southern California. I'm getting lazy. I admit it. The opportunity right now I see is in commercial notes. And I'm looking at commercial notes. Commercial notes are different. I will do commercial notes in other parts of the country because they're usually larger. And it's a totally different thing. Before you get into that, you have to know more information than even buying regular residential notes, because there's almost no motion in the commercial notes. And right now there's a lot of resets going on in the commercial finance field. A lot of companies are not able to pay, so if you notice, there's a lot of, at least I've seen, everywhere I've seen, there's a lot of retail space for lease now, all over the place. So commercial notes they're not going to be able to pay off their commercial notes. I see foreclosure on the line. I see opportunity right now.
What are some of the main differences you can think of between residential notes and commercial that you would probably want to look out for if you're trying to buy commercial paper?
Well, I'd like office condos. Really like office condos because those are something that you can change the use very, very easily. I don't like big empty storage spaces unless I have a plan for, like, say the area doesn't have enough, what's that stuff called, storage, self-storage. I could see that as a wonderful opportunity for these big vacant warehouses. I see that as a wonderful, because some of them are air-conditioned, and so that's an opportunity there.
And remember, medical marijuana is legal as of January 1st, so you got row houses all over the place.
I am a former deputy probation officer. I'm going to stay away from that.
Wait till the feds come in.
Because I've seen the results of that stuff from the other side. So there's a wonderful opportunity. It's something that personal choice.
Well, it's interesting. We're doing a panel in Manhattan Beach on that.
They can't get financing.
In January.
Matthew, they can't get financing. So all that seller financing right now or private money.
I did a deal that was 14% return on investment secured by a commercial building with no first mortgage. This was a first mortgage that was paying 14% in Colorado for that. But, there's some risk to that, of course. You have to be careful about those types of things because of the federal government, regulations that can come down. So, there's all kinds of new things coming out.
Well, they're also commercials very economy determined.
Right.
They determine if the success. Yes, thank you.
With those types
good
of
choice.
Right? No emotional equity in that.
No emotional equity.
Question here.
I was going to say the Supreme Court just the Roboto Farm Amendment, which says that it's legal in the state to grow. Feds can't come down to social.
Did they send you their payments all in cash?
Actually, that's not true anymore. They can actually use banks. They just can't get financing. So they're going to be because
that's why there's the opportunity. They can't get financing.
Exactly. So, but that's interesting. Absolutely, and we have an attorney coming in to talk about that later on. So it should be really interesting. But there's so many new opportunities out there that new changes in technology are going to bring to the table that are going to just change the game substantially with all new information coming to the table, new efficiencies and things like that. It's really interesting. Have you guys seen any
marijuana notes are going to come for sale soon?
Yeah, probably. So, are you guys seeing anything with regard to technology that might be changing the game in the note industry?
Oh, technology changed the note industry completely. Okay. When I got started, it was the wild, wild west.
Okay.
Now you can go on the internet. And find out about notes. Before, there was no marketplace at all that you could go to, and I loved it. That's why I said I got in the note business a long time ago because nobody else was doing it. Nobody else understood it. And until 1997, it was absolutely wonderful. It's been a little more difficult since then, but still wonderful.
Even though a lot more people are in it now, I think there's still a vast majority of the people that don't understand it in comparison to real estate in general and other asset classes because
they also don't understand niches.
Documents. That's what it comes down to.
Oh, so true of that. But niches. They don't understand that there's many niches in the note business as there are in real estate, that creative techniques and strategies for real estate work on notes and other things.
So how did you discover it?
Discover what?
How did you get into this?
The note business?
Yeah.
Because I did real estate before the note business.
Right.
Because of real estate, I got into the note business.
You're tired of dealing with tenants, huh?
I invested out of state. And I had trouble keeping tenants. And so I got to a point where I got tired of traveling to solve problems. So I sold my properties, and a few of the properties. And I could only sell it by becoming the bank, by financing the sale myself. So I provide seller financing to get rid of my headache. Well, I didn't have any tenants to turn over anymore. The worst thing I did was having the cut fingers opening up the envelopes with the checks. And I go, wow. And I went to real estate clubs and I told my colleagues about it. And they started doing it too because they were having problems themselves because we've been sold a bill of goods on another part of the country that if we'd had a capable team on the ground to help us, we would have done well. But back then I didn't know better. So they did it also. They started selling their properties. They were being offered seller financing. They came back. They said they were doing that. And then after a couple months, I'm only getting a couple $100 a month. I really need some cash. So I started buying their notes from them at less than face value because I had some money. And then a few years later, I was friggin' brilliant. I just can't believe how brilliant I was because they all paid off. And then I go, wow, this is wonderful. So what the heck did I just do? So I started taking classes. And I remember I took this one class, and if you can ever find his product, his name is John Bailey, Behle. I took a 7-day course from him on the note business, as a business. And it was like taking a sip out of a fire hose. However, it jumped my business. I became a note investor, note broker, and I understood it. And then I started using investors' monies to buy notes. And then I started selling them to institutions. And then everybody knew that I was doing it, so I didn't have to market anymore. 99% of my business was a referral business. And then in 1997, a terrible thing happened.
We got involved.
They all got refinanced out. We had a $5 million portfolio get paid off in 1 month, July 1997. Wow. Seriously.
I mean, it's good and bad. You get a bunch of money, but then all of a sudden
So then I started investing in mobile homes and mobile home notes. And then I said, to heck with this, and just started doing hard money lending and real estate for them. And then notes.
Question.
I have a question. It's not related, but I would love to hear your opinion on it. What do you guys think about the program? There's only a few, but they allow you to borrow money, not private money, to buy debt. So these guys will give you hard money loans to buy debt. Do you think this?
I mentioned that earlier, didn't I? Don't ever borrow money to buy an investment unless you know what the heck you're doing.
Oh, so you would do it? You would borrow?
I do it. Okay, I know what I'm doing. I've only had 30 years of scars and T-shirts.
Would you go to one of these companies, or you go to?
Oh heck no! I would not go to these
companies. I feel like two companies.
No, I would talk to people like Sasha and I can't remember Zach.
It's on the shirt.
And I never saw your sister's name.
Alana.
I would track people like that by speaking and teaching.
Person before you went to one of these banks.
You always want to deal with a human being. You can speak to a human being. Okay. What they're doing is what another company did back in the 90s. They were called FINAC, First National Acceptance Corporation out of Michigan. They almost went under. They were a bank that almost went under because they did that. They created lines of credit for note brokers and note investors. And there was a downturn. And there had been a great deal of fraud, bad appraisals, and they almost went bad. I've seen it, and the people who got hurt worse were the people who leveraged more.
See, and that's the key right there is that if there's fraud involved and bad appraisals and things like that, you better know how to value real estate.
Thank you.
If you don't understand real estate, you have no business investing in notes at all. You need to understand the property first and how you can lose money on property. That's the most important thing.
I want to repeat this. A great investment is only great if you get paid. Sheep get sheared, hogs get slaughtered.
You question about, what do we do in a downturn? Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head with this emotional equity. I mean, a homeowner's not sitting there thinking, oh, my house went down from $300 to $250. I better quit paying my mortgages. most of them are going to keep paying their mortgages because they live in that house. They don't want to lose it. It's the ones that defaulted in this downturn like 2007 where people had these crazy loans. They bought in a speculative way. No income, no doc, stated income, all those types of loans. So and we invest in about 25 different states right now. So, and it's different being the bank in all those states as opposed to being a landlord in all those states. I would not recommend out-of-state landlording unless you have really good property management people, boots on the ground, and like Memphis. You're in Memphis.
I went through 5 management companies before starting my own. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm the only one that I think is efficient enough in my opinion.
But most of the houses,
I have a sister management company that's really, really, good. They run a lot and they're really efficient, but it took a lot, and it's like this in a lot of markets. They don't care. So unless you have some power or unless you have some control in some way, I will never sign a management agreement that does not allow me an out if they're not acting in my best interest.
Right.
I'll never do it.
Also, throughout this country, if you're from California, you have a bullseye on your chest.
Fresh meat. You're fresh meat. I actually went to the Memphis Investment Club meeting, and I was like, "Hey guys, I'm from California. I'm fresh meat." And I was like, "Hey, I'm pitching a multifamily." I had like 4 or 5 people hit me up about it. And I actually got it sold there, but they were drooling there. There were like 15 people coming up to me. "Here, I got properties. I got this." And you're like, "Yeah, I don't buy in the hood." Sorry.
I actually like the guys that run the group.
Oh yeah, they actually do a great job, in my opinion. That they actually bring some quality information. They don't sell you a bunch of stuff, They do a good job, So, but I like that group. They let you go through and they do deal profile type stuff and things like that. So
for us as being protected, we're in like 25 different states. So it's unlikely that Texas and Ohio and Florida are all going to crash at the same time. There's some stability there, I think. And I just want to mention one thing that we do that I think is kind of cool. We use our junior mortgages. We foreclose from a second position, and then we hold the property subject to. We take over the payments on the first mortgage. So I just did this on a house in Mission Viejo. I didn't even have to foreclose. The lady was delinquent, and she knew she was going to lose her house. And she said, Gerald, I'll just deed it over to you. Give me a few $1,000s to move out. So I gave her $5,000. Right now, the first mortgage is $635,000 at a 4 1/8% interest rate, and the house is probably worth $9,000, and I'm renting it for $3,600 a month. So we've been able to accumulate about $3 million worth of Southern California real estate by owning the junior lien, and then either doing a foreclosure or cash for keys with that homeowner and getting them out of the house and taking over the payments on the first mortgage. And hopefully we can leverage that. If that as that portfolio, hopefully it'll increase in value over time. And right now it cash flows, so it pays for itself. The tenants are paying all the mortgage payments.
I think the diversification thing is key for that, and understanding where you're investing and how volatile that market is when there's economic changes is something to really pay attention to as well, because if you're investing in a California market that's highly volatile in certain areas, like you look at, Riverside area that went down by 50% during the crash, and I don't think it necessarily went back
more than
up.
that.
Yeah, well, there's like 60 in certain cases and things like that, but if you're looking at those types of scenarios, you really want to see how much did that come back up to right now. Is it peaking again like it did last time? And is there a possibility that it could crash again? And so in that case, you want to kind of make sure you're extra protected in those highly volatile markets with additional equity. So if it goes down by 20%, you can get out. If it goes down by 30%, you can get out. If it goes down by 60%, you're pretty much screwed. But, I don't know anybody who's going to fare well in that. Nobody's going to want a 40% loan in the first place. So, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So
I wanted to bring up, nobody brought it up, and he did it in a back way. Another way of investing in real estate is to buy a delinquent defaulted second to get the house. That's another way of getting into real estate. And you can do it sometimes for pennies on the dollar to start with. You just have to take it to the foreclosure.
It can actually be a better way to buy discounted properties now with the competition that's happening right now in the market is to focus on that piece because like you go to any property that needs fixed up in California right now and everybody thinks it's worth market value even if it's not and they're trying to get that value from you. You go the note route and you can buy the discounted note because banks are not in the foreclosure process, not in the property business and so you can get them for much cheaper and get those discounts. So that being said, we're going to finish it up with that and remember guys, I want you guys to definitely take a flyer from Bill for his group, which I know adds a lot of value to people. And Gerald, you have a group too, right, in Garden Grove?
Sure. If you go to the internet and look up Note Pros Workshop, it's a meetup group, but if you just Google Note Pros, all one word, and then Workshop. Andrew's been there. A few people in this room have been there. And get on the mailing list, and we'll email you out. Greg, is it Greg or Gary?
Yeah.
Greg. Yep. Yeah, he's been there a few times. We meet on the second Wednesday of the month, but I'm going to move that because I happen to be the same night as Bill's meeting.
Same night as our meeting, too. We happen to have the same night meeting. So in Manhattan Beach is ours, but you're in a different area, so that's fine.
He agreed to move it because we're going to align. I'm going to tell everybody in my group, if you're interested in notes, as part of my group, go to his meeting.
I mean, like a subgroup.
I'm going to call it his like a subgroup. It's his own meeting, but we're going to call it a subgroup.
Where is yours at again?
Mine's up by Pasadena, San Gabriel.
Yeah, see, we're not competing. We're in Manhattan Beach. Nobody's going to drive that.
Oh, you already know.
Sometimes.
Almost 20% of my group is from the South Bay.
Interesting. That's cool.
And I get that complaint all the time that, Gerald, your meeting's the same night as Bill's meeting. We have to toss a coin as to which meeting to go to. I'd love to come to your meeting, but you conflict with Bill.
And then Jasmine, you have a note school as well, correct? Note lab, basically.
Yeah, we're doing a note lab. I actually have a flyer. Thanks for those and ask if you don't mind. But I'll give you a flyer. It's in November. We only do them twice a year here. And I do another 2 in New York, but that's it. You'll need 4 out of me, so I'll figure out which one to come to. This is the last one for the year.
It's a weekend course, right?
Yeah, it's a 2-day up here in Torrance.
Cool.
Do they talk funny in New York?
They do a lot of funny stuff in New York.
Well, thank you guys very much. Feel free to check out meetup.com or For Investors by Investors. You'll find all of our different chapters on there. And go ahead and network. Find the people that you guys were supposed to be paying attention to earlier. None of you guys did it, did you? Good job.